I mentioned the last time I was talking about ascending and descending, and it's not just
Yes,
yeah, it's not just one person that says that descending somehow had to do with first Christ, first you become saved, ascending, and then you're automatically dispatched to the earth to share the gospel, and that's descending. So
no,
this is another situation where you make it up. It comes to your mind, and it seems logical. It seems you know like that's what it is, or it's a good idea,
that
and
has
it
to do with the great and the terrible day of the Lord. That's when the angels they ascend and descend.
right,
Right.
right. So, but
The messengers.
unfortunately, if we let our minds interpret the Bible, so we come up with different scenarios. So let's start with Genesis chapter 28 and verse 12. And he dreamed a dream, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven, and behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. And I think if you look at John 1:51, that's the only tie-in it appears from what I've been able to see that people
Yeah.
make. They relate the two together, and they say, okay, well, the latter is Christ, because John 1:51 says, and he saith unto him, verily, verily, I say unto you, hereafter you shall see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. Okay, so I don't have a problem with even looking at the ladder at this point as an avenue. No man comes to me but through the Father. So Christ is the intermediary. So that might be one way of looking at it. But by the same token, I have a couple of verses here. The word ladder is only used once, it appears in the Bible. And let's see. Let me see what word that is. That's the word. Hang on one second. The word ladder is it just says ladder. See, there's not a whole lot of description here for the word 05549.
There's
Uh,
no cognate word for ladder.
well,
There's
there
no
is
cognate.
one. That's what I want to get to. There's
Oh,
another, a related word to that, and that's zero. Let's see, what is it? 05551. And I picked a couple of verses here that seem to be relating to, well, let me read these verses. Exodus chapter 9, verse 17. As ye exaltest thou thyself against my people. That's the same word. The word exalt is the
exalted. There it
comparative
is.
word to the word ladder. That thou wilt not let them go. So the context here appears to be one where Satan is exalting himself, or the church, or Babylon exalting himself against the people of God. So that might relate to Antichrist or a false gospel. Job chapter 19, verse 12. His troops come together and raise up, that's the same word here, not the word ladder, but close to it, raise up their way against me. So again, the same context. Job 30, verse 12. Upon my right hand rise the youth, they push away my feet, and they raise up against me the ways of their destruction. Well, how do they do that, though, spiritually? Normally, they do it through a false doctrine, false prophets, false teaching. That's how they oppose the gospel, right? And
Yep.
Isaiah chapter 57, verse 14, and shall say, cast ye up, prepare the way, take up the stumbling block out of the way of my people. The word cast ye up here, used twice, is the same, is the related word. Um, Isaiah 62, verse 10, go through the gates, prepare ye the way of the way of the people, cast up the highway, gather out the stones, lift up a standard for my people. Okay, so there's not a whole lot there. I'm not gonna, make a case. I can't make a case from the Bible right now that the word ladder is not related to Christ. However, I just wanted to share some of these verses to show that a lot of times that relationship to Christ is not always positive. It's not always salvation related. It could
That's
also
true.
it could also be judgment related, as Antichrist come
Exactly.
against
Yeah,
the
I
body.
see those themes. I see what you're talking about throughout the Bible. There's
Right.
sometimes you'll look at
what you're doing here, and then you'll find that most of the times that they're used, they're always used in a judgment
Right,
setting.
right, in a negative way. So,
That's true.
so that's the
Yeah.
word ladder here. Okay, so but if we take it one step further, we can't isolate those two verses, Genesis 28 and John 1. We have to look at the whole Bible. Now, one interesting piece of information, it seems, in Genesis 28, verse 12, and he dreamed a dream, and a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. Now that's interesting. Where do we read that in the Bible? How many times we read the reference, the idea of something reaching unto heaven?
The
Genesis,
Tower of Babel.
the Tower of Babel. Genesis 11, verse 4. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven.
That's it.
So there it is. It appears that the idea of something reaching unto heaven, it's usually in the context of Antichrist coming against the church, against God, in a sinful way, in a way that is judgment related. Also, 2 Chronicles 28, verse 9. But a prophet of the Lord was there whose name was Oded, and he went out before the host that came to Samaria and said unto them, Behold, because the Lord God of your fathers was wroth with Judah, he hath delivered them into your hand, and ye have slain them in a rage that reacheth up unto heaven. Jeremiah 51, verse 9. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her. Let us go every one into his own country, for her judgment reacheth unto heaven and is lifted up to the skies. Daniel 4:20. The tree that thou sawest, which grew and was strong, whose height reached unto heaven, and the side thereof to all the earth. In verse 22 of Daniel 4, it is thou, O king, that thou art grown and become strong, for thy greatness is grown and reacheth unto heaven, and thy dominion to the end of the earth. What is this? I forgot to. I think I have a verse 10 here. I'm not sure if it's from Daniel. I guess I forgot to put the book and chapter. And he said, what hast thou done? Thy brother's voice. Oh, okay. So this is the context of yeah, this is the context of Cain and Abel. I believe this was in Genesis. Let me see something. Hang on one second. Yeah, Genesis 4:10. Genesis 4:10, that's what this is. Let me just label that. And he said unto me, and he said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. You see, anytime there's wickedness in the earth, anytime there is a rebellion, it always reaches unto heaven. It goes up into the ears of God, and then he's aware of the sin of the sin that's going on related to Christ, and that's when he begins to take action. So, like Eric just said, with the Tower of Babel, so they built a tower that it was supposed to reach unto heaven.
Remember?
Huh?
Sodom and Gomorrah was another one where the sin, the cries of the people came up to the Lord, and also in the book of Exodus where the children of Israel were enslaved, and that too, their cry reaches up to heaven, but that's for a different context.
Right. There's the context of salvation when the two witnesses or the people of God, they're saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? So that too reaches unto heaven in a way where God is talking about vengeance. And also, lastly, here in Revelation 18, verse 5, for her sins have reached unto heaven, and God have remembered her iniquities. Now, if we're supposed to let the Bible dictate or interpret the Bible, why would we leave all these verses out? Why do we not search the Bible to see what this phrase relates to? And almost every single one of them, in the proper context, appears to be talking about judgment, right? So descending is not the idea of you carrying a track or you somehow, after you've been saved, now you're mandated to go back down to earth and then share the gospel. That's what it seems, many people interpret that. All right, so let's look at those two together, ascending and descending, and then see if the context will give us more information. Ephesians 4, verse 8, wherefore he saith, when he ascended up on high, he led captivity captive and gave gifts unto men. Verse 9, now that he ascended, what is it but that he also descended first into the lower parts of the earth? What does it mean? What is the idea of Christ descending into the lower parts of the earth?
That has to do with what? Tribulation, doesn't it?
It has to do with being identified with Babylon.
Yeah.
Babylon, right?
Yeah.
His sins became our sins were placed on him. So
Yeah,
descending.
he became Babylon. Yeah.
Right.
He became Christ.
That's like Jonah in the belly of the whale. So Christ was 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth, means that he was enduring judgment. Now that's the same judgment that comes on the unsaved if they are not ascending, if they're not becoming saved, if they're not part of the sacrifice, right? Revelation 7, verse 2, and I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God, and he cried with a loud voice unto the 4 angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea. Now, the ascending here appears to be talking about the judgment of God, the salvation that comes on the body. Look at Exodus chapter 19, verse 18. And Mount Sinai was altogether on the smoke because the Lord descended upon it in fire. Now that happened at Mount Sinai. Where else can we possibly apply this verse spiritually? In tribulation. The word fire. Well, the word fire. What happens when God comes to judge Babylon?
Uses the false prophet.
He uses the fire. He uses the false prophet. So that's a form of judgment. Right. So it's in this context that God is talking about descending, coming down. As a matter of fact, that reminds me, because even in the same context of Babel, the Tower of Babel, the Lord did say, "Let us come down," right? And see.
Let's go down and see the city.
Let us go down.
And also came down. When he came to Sodom and Gomorrah, in the form of 3 men,
right.
2 angels went into the city, and God was talking to Abraham. That too,
right.
There's another. I believe it is. I could be wrong, but it looks that way.
So God coming down appears to be in the context of bringing judgment. Proverbs 30, verse 4. Who have ascended up into heaven, or descended, who have gathered the wind in his fist, who have bound the waters in the garments, who have established all the ends of the earth. What is his name? And what his son's name, if thou canst tell. So ascending and descending again. John 1:51. Now we saw that verse earlier. The angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. So what appears to be in view here is that, there is an opening. Christ comes to be the sin bearer, to be the substitute, to be the sacrifice for his people. And God pictures heaven as being up there and judgment as being down. Now, isn't that interesting? It just dawned on me right then. We're always talking about going to heaven up there. And what do we say about hell? Down there, right?
Right.
We always refer to hell, even parabolically or not in a literal sense. But I think it's the same thing that's in view. So salvation is up there, ascending, and judgment is down there, descending. Right?
That's right.
So the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. So in other words, there's those that are becoming saved and those that are coming under God's judgment. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 10. He that descended is the same also that ascended. Now, how does this relate to Christ? Well, Christ had to endure judgment, right? He had to endure the cross. He had to come under the wrath of God. But those who do not become saved, they too, in the spiritual sense, are experiencing God's judgment. So they are down there. That's why I think we read in the context of those who descend. On the one hand, it has to do with the penalty that Christ had to pay, but spiritually, it is relating to the judgment that comes on the church in the end. Two more verses, Acts chapter 10. And I saw heaven open and a certain vessel descending unto him, as it had been a great sheet knit at the four corners and let down to the earth. And in the following verse, the verse 12, verse 12, wherein were all manner of four-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and fowls of the air. What do those represent? The four-footed beasts, the wild beasts, the creeping things, and the fowls of the air. And even in this context, when I think it was Peter that saw the vision, that a sheet was let down from heaven, and on that we had all manner of unclean animals.
Yeah, but that's talking about the false prophets and all that. God associates them with unclean animals.
Right. So the interesting thing again here is that it appears to be in the context. That may not always be the case, but if we have the proper context, then we see the word descending together with the word ascending, and then hopefully we get a better perspective, a better understanding of what God is talking about. All right, so quickly to summarize, God appears to be relating ascending and descending on the Son of Man to the gospel of judgment and salvation. What else is new? That's the message of the Bible.
It's a message. I'm awesome.
It's a message of judgment and salvation. Him descending, having descended to the lower parts of the earth, points to the sacrifice of his death caused by the church, and the word ascending would seem to point to the redemption that is provided through that sacrifice. So you see the harmony there, Lord willing?
Amen. Yeah.
The harmony that all of that, it ties into the rest of the Bible. So we're not just picking and choosing a verse here and then just, oh, there it is. That's what the Bible teaches. We have to look at everything. We have to have the big picture from Genesis to Revelation. All the Bible has to harmonize. Otherwise, and then if we don't do that, then we run into a situation where there's a conflict and we don't know how to explain it because we haven't actually harmonized it.
In Exodus, where Moses comes on the scene and he's before Pharaoh, Pharaoh tells him to, because he comes to Moses and he wants to, God tells him to let my people go. And then what's interesting is that God delivers basically the children of Israel from right under the burdens of the Egyptians, from under. Mm-hmm. In other words, we're under. We're before we're saved.
Right.
What the elect is, we're basically in slavery to our sin.
Right.
We are under a taskmaster. Moses comes on the scene, and basically God uses Moses to deliver us from out or from under the burden of the Egyptians. Mm-hmm. I find that the word under, just like this, it's almost connected to the word descending. But we're ascending, we're coming out. It's interesting that I just happen to remember that.
Yeah. There is a tie in there. I do believe. Now, hang on one second. Let me turn off the recorder.
Did you have a duck on that?
There's something else that I need.
I would like to have it. For the first time, I actually heard this talk correctly. I was just like all the rest of them.
Well, this is something that I'll go ahead and put up on the website, like all the other studies. So you'll have a chance to to look at it and raise any questions. Hang on one second.